1 minute ago, FBI chasing Oprah, Diddy's leaks reveal 75-millimeter silence deal. It started with a plane. At 5:42 a.m., a private jet registered to Harpo Inc. lifted off from a restricted hangar in Los Angeles. The skies were still dark, but news was already moving. The jet belonged to Oprah Winfrey. Hours later, the FBI confirmed that an arrest warrant had been filed. That same morning, Sean Diddy Combs was taken into custody during a joint Homeland Security and FBI raid. Agents recovered encrypted hard drives, banking records, and something they didn't expect. Video files. Dozens of them, hidden, archived, some partially deleted. By noon, speculation exploded. One name kept surfacing alongside Diddy's: Oprah. For years, Oprah had been the untouchable icon, a media empire, a philanthropist, the woman who could make a book a bestseller with a single sentence. Her smile had comforted millions. Her foundation had sent thousands to school. But now the question was sharp and sudden. Why did she leave? Reporters chased the tail number of the jet, its route direct to Zurich, Switzerland, a known retreat for wealthy Americans looking to disappear behind international law, and Switzerland famous for slow extradition, complicated treaties. That afternoon, FBI officials held a press briefing. They confirmed two things. Oprah Winfrey had not been detained. A formal investigation was underway, involving possible obstruction and suppression of federal evidence. They didn't say her name, but the media didn't need them to. Social media caught fire. Swears Oprah, Diddy files, Halo fallen. TikTok clips speculated on past scandals. Reddit threads linked old interviews. Some users referenced Oprah's 2007 school controversy in South Africa. Others claim this had been coming for years. In one viral clip, former musician and whistleblower Jaguar Wright appeared on an old live stream. "I told y'all," she said, shaking her head. "You thought she was the safe one, the mother of daytime. She was the firewall." The comment hit a nerve. Then came the leaks. From a seized device inside Diddy's mansion, Homeland Security recovered file metadata pointing to a Zurich-based media server linked to Harpo Media's European node. Authorities said the material was highly sensitive. One folder labeled Legacy Vault included time-stamped videos showing private celebrity gatherings with signs of inappropriate content and underage individuals. Nothing had been publicly released yet, but the descriptions were enough. Then the real bomb dropped. Financial records traced a $75 million payment from a Harpo-controlled shell company in the Bahamas. The recipient, a silent holding firm linked to Diddy's legal trust. The memo line read, "For international licensing rights." By the end of the day, Oprah's team released a short statement. "These rumors are false and politically motivated. Ms. Winfrey is not hiding, nor is she under arrest. She is traveling for personal reasons. No further comment at this time." But no comment wasn't enough. Reporters swarmed outside Harpo Studios in Chicago. Protesters gathered. Some held signs, "The truth doesn't sleep," and "Justice, not celebrity." Meanwhile, federal agents were mobilizing. A former Harpo staffer name, withheld for protection, handed over internal communication logs. Emails, Slack messages, phone memos. One stood out. "If this vault leaks, it's not just a PR problem, it's systemic." The signature was redacted, but the timing matched an emergency board meeting 2 weeks before the jet left LA. By nightfall, the DOJ issued a formal statement. A person of interest is currently outside U.S. jurisdiction. Cooperation with Swiss authorities is underway. This case involves potential obstruction of a federal investigation with pending charges. No name, but everyone knew. The next morning, Oprah's longtime friend and journalist Gayle King appeared on CBS. Her tone was measured, but her words mattered. "I love my friend, but friendship does not equal immunity. We all need the facts." The silence afterward spoke volumes. In Zurich, Oprah checked into a secluded estate in St. Moritz, a fortified chalet with private security and diplomatic protection. Swiss media confirmed her presence but noted she was not under house arrest. She declined to appear publicly. Inside, the U.S. investigators moved fast. They weren't after fame. They were after files. And they had them. Among the footage, one piece stood out. A 2016 video. A charity event hosted on a private island. Several minors were present. No overt criminal act was visible, but the context raised red flags. A Harpo logo appeared briefly in the corner of the stage. Within 48 hours, the Department of Justice requested formal extradition. Swiss officials confirmed receipt, but legal analysts said it would take weeks, maybe months, unless Oprah returned voluntarily. And then it happened. A video surfaced. Not leaked, not stolen. Uploaded. From Oprah. She sat alone, backlit by soft lamps. No makeup, no audience. She spoke slowly, carefully. I want to begin by saying I am not running. I left the country because I was advised to take time. Time to understand what had happened. Time to find out what I didn't know, or didn't want to know. There were things hidden, things done under my name, and I accept responsibility for not seeing it sooner. But I did not hurt children. I did not exploit anyone. I tried to keep chaos from spreading. I believed that was the right choice. Maybe I was wrong. The video lasted 6 minutes. No tears, no excuses. Just her voice. Calm, shaken, real. Public reaction was mixed. Some called it brave, others called it calculated. But the DOJ didn't care. The FBI was building a case, and the files kept speaking louder than the words. Inside a sealed Homeland Security room, 2 agents reviewed newly decrypted documents. One folder contained calendar logs, another included legal agreements. Many were non-disclosure agreements tied to events funded by Harpo's international branch. The language was clear, no mention of what occurred. Severe penalties. No recordings allowed. One line read, Zurich team activated, full asset control initiated, comply or exit. In D.C., 2 senators were briefed. One emerged pale, refusing to speak. The other, Senator Jordan, made a short statement. I've seen enough. Justice must follow no matter who signs the checks. That quote led the evening news. Harpo Studios suspended all programming. Own social media pages went silent. Charity boards cut ties quietly. And Oprah? She booked a return flight. At 6:00 a.m. local time, a new jet took off from Switzerland. Its destination, Washington, D.C. Inside the cabin, Oprah sat alone. No cameras, no press. Just a quiet seat facing forward. Waiting. The plane landed 12 hours later. She was escorted by federal agents, but not in handcuffs. There was no spectacle. No red carpet, no media line. Just a courthouse and a case file. Inside the courtroom, anticipation was high. Some compared it to the O.J. trial, but this felt different. This wasn't about a crime of passion or a tabloid frenzy. This was about trust, power, silence. And in the days that followed, the truth began to speak. One line at a time. One file at a time. One name at a time. The courthouse was still quiet. Oprah had arrived. There were no photos, no press conferences, just sealed doors and silent stares. Reporters waited outside in the June heat, but no official word came. Inside, a closed pre-trial session was underway. The judge, a woman in her late 60s with sharp eyes and no social media footprint, reviewed the sealed materials with federal prosecutors. And at the center of that sealed packet, a number. $75,000. That was the amount traced from Harpo International Holdings to a private equity shell connected to Combs Global Trust. The memo line said licensing rights, but prosecutors weren't convinced. Neither was the court. 2 weeks earlier, in a small office building in Alexandria, Virginia, a woman walked into a federal satellite office with a flash drive, a handwritten letter, and an old Harpo employee badge. Her name was Angela. She had worked at Harpo from 2015 to 2021, officially under the title Philanthropy and Logistics Liaison. Unofficially, she was the fixer. Her job had been to arrange international travel, coordinate private security, and manage sensitive schedule alignment for top-level guests of Harpo events abroad. Angela said she left quietly in 2021 after a breach of trust. Now she wanted to speak. Inside the folder she brought were 6 documents. A digital ledger of wire transfers from Harpo to foreign registered accounts, including one for 12.less sent 2 days after a private event in the Bahamas. Internal emails flagged internal eyes only between Harpo Legal and a Zurich media server vendor. A calendar log titled Vault Rotation 2016-2020, listing encrypted asset transfers from Zurich to Los Angeles. A non-disclosure agreement drafted by Harpo's legal counsel, referencing visual media of extreme reputational risk. Flight itineraries matching Harpo guests and minors under aliases like Special Youth Scholarship Delegate. A handwritten note from a senior Harpo executive. Zurich needs to disappear. Angela, you know the drill. Angela had kept the files in encrypted storage for over 2 years, not out of revenge, but fear. I thought if I left, she said, it would all go away, but it didn't. The files were passed to Homeland Security. Within 48 hours, a federal task force revisited the Zurich server case. Their initial analysis had missed a hidden archive folder. Angela's login credentials unlocked it. Inside were 212 media files, encrypted, fragmented, and marked with Harpo event dates and internal codes. The folder titled Project Silk. Back in court, the prosecutors presented a simplified version of this data. They didn't describe the footage in public. They didn't have to. They showed the financial trail from Harpo's U.S. charity division to Harpo International, to a bank in the Bahamas, to Combs Global Trust, to a Zurich-based server rental, and finally to a deletion request marked Final Transfer Authorization. Every link was time-stamped. One payment stood out, the full $75 million, dated 3 weeks after the last vault rotation email. The question wasn't just why the money was paid. It was what was she trying to buy. Angela's name wasn't revealed publicly, but reporters caught wind of a major internal whistleblower. On social media, Oprah whistleblower began trending. People started asking who had the courage to come forward. What had they seen? What was in Project Silk? And what exactly had Harpo been running out of Zurich? Meanwhile, Harpo's internal operations were falling apart. The OWN network suspended new production indefinitely. Sponsors pulled advertising. A longtime producer speaking anonymously to The Atlantic described the mood inside Harpo as numb. She wasn't supposed to be this, he said. She built everything on trust. Now we don't know what's left. Another insider added, "We used to say Oprah knew everything. That was a compliment. Now it's a threat." In a quiet conference room in D.C., Oprah's legal team met to draft her official defense strategy. They were split. Some argued for full denial, blame Diddy, claim manipulation, discredit Angela. Others warned the files are too strong. The paper trail is clear. You need to control the narrative. Oprah listened, but she said little. Eventually she stood, looked at her team and said, "We don't destroy, we build. And I'm not lying to the people I helped." But that didn't mean she would confess to a crime. Her lawyers proposed a new angle: ethical misjudgment. Not criminal intent, but a misguided attempt to prevent public chaos. And so the story shifted again. 1 week after returning to the U.S., Oprah released a second video, this time 10 minutes long, edited like a documentary segment. She spoke directly to camera. "I understand now that silence is not protection, it's complicity. When I authorized the retrieval of certain materials, I believed I was shielding people, victims, families, institutions from destruction. I thought I was buying time. I thought I was buying peace. But I understand now, what I was really doing was delaying truth. To those who feel betrayed, I see you. To those who trusted me, I failed you." The video ended with her signature. Simple, no graphics, no music. It aired on national television by request. Public response was again divided. Some praised the honesty. Others pointed out she still hadn't explained the footage. Angela watched it from a federal safe house. "I think she believes it," she said quietly. "But believing something doesn't make it right." The Senate called for a classified hearing. 2 senators who had been briefed on the Zurich files now pushed for public transparency. Senator Reid said, "No one is above accountability, not presidents, not billionaires, not icons." Meanwhile, the DOJ filed 3 formal charges against Oprah: obstruction of justice, suppression of federal evidence, conspiracy to interfere with an ongoing federal investigation. Notably, trafficking charges were not included. Authorities said evidence did not show she directly participated, only that she had obstructed its exposure. The case shocked the legal world. How do you prosecute a cultural symbol? How do you sentence a philanthropist who may have protected a predator? One legal expert said, "This isn't about Oprah as a person, this is about Oprah as a system, and whether a system should answer to the same rules as the rest of us." In the following days, additional internal Harpo employees began speaking anonymously. A former editor recalled being told to scrub raw footage from a 2017 charity gala. Another mentioned being instructed to wipe drives before inspection. Nothing criminal on its own, but the pattern was forming. Then came the memo. Leaked to the Washington Post, it was a Harpo legal brief dated April 2018. It read, "Should any visual content re-emerge from Zurich or prior Combs engagements, activate full media lockdown. Consider liquidation of Harpo Europe if necessary. Minimize domestic fallout." It was signed by Harpo's former legal director. When asked for comment, he refused. Angela's testimony was scheduled for the following week. She remained in federal protection. But quietly, her name was already known to key press circles. She released a short written statement. "I did not speak because I hated anyone. I spoke because I was tired of pretending. I believed in the mission until I saw what it was really protecting." She added, "Truth is not betrayal, it's survival." And so, as the trial prepared to begin, the world looked at the unthinkable, an empire built on trust, now standing trial for hiding what mattered most: the truth. Angela's statement had changed everything. By the time her testimony was formally submitted to federal investigators, the tone inside Washington had shifted. The media wasn't asking if Oprah knew anymore. Now they were asking how much, and more importantly, who helped her. At FBI headquarters, the team managing the Oprah case had grown from 6 agents to 42. The Zurich media node had revealed more than just controversial files. It revealed a system: encrypted financial logs, deleted email threads, off-the-record meeting invites, documents stored across 5 continents under aliases and shell companies. At the center of the new investigation sat something labeled only Echo Fund 4, Internal Containment Division. The document didn't mention Oprah by name, but Harpo Media was listed as the parent entity, and Gayle King-Shee was listed as a Tier 1 media asset. For over 2 decades, Oprah and Gayle had been inseparable in the public eye, best friends, co-hosts, trusted voices. But behind the scenes, that trust was now in question. Gayle had been briefed about the investigation 2 days before Angela's materials were presented to the court. Her response: silence. Then, without warning, she canceled all upcoming OWN appearances, canceled CBS morning segments, canceled interviews, and finally issued a one-line statement. "I love my friend, but friendship is not immunity. I need the facts." It was short, but it was enough. The internet exploded. Gayle knows. Silence is loud. Oprah alone. Inside Harpo's Chicago offices, staff were panicking. One executive producer resigned mid-shift. Several assistants walked out. Internal Slack channels were locked. The PR team stopped returning emails. OWN's final live program aired at 3:32 p.m. that Thursday. It did not end with a goodbye. It simply cut to black. Meanwhile, in Zurich, Oprah remained hidden in the mountains of St. Moritz. The chalet she occupied was now surrounded by private security surveillance drones and diplomatic lawyers. But the walls were closing in. Swiss prosecutors confirmed receipt of the DOJ's formal extradition request. Their statement was neutral but clear. "Due to the strength of evidence and existing treaties, we are reviewing the case with urgency." Legal experts predicted a 2 to 3 week timeline before final decision. Oprah's legal team scrambled to respond. Their tactic: political asylum. The claim was this: Ms. Winfrey is being unfairly targeted due to her race, gender, and political associations. The pressure against her is unprecedented and politically motivated. They filed with the Swiss Federal Department of Justice and Police, arguing that Oprah would not receive a fair trial in the United States. But the Swiss press wasn't convinced. Neither was the public. Zurich's largest newspaper, Tagesanzeiger, ran a headline the next morning: "Power isn't a passport." Underneath was a photo of Oprah's estate, distant, cold, protected. One editor wrote, "What do you do when the icon who told us to speak up is now the one who silenced others?" Outside Harpo Studios in Chicago, protesters gathered for the fifth night in a row. Some carried candles, others held signs. Beneath the halo there was always fire. Say their names, show the tapes. Oprah lead, survivors died. Inside, the DOJ prosecutors quietly built what they now called the Halo case. It was no longer just about Oprah. It was about an entire structure of influence that allowed reputation to override responsibility. They mapped the connections. Harpo International paid Diddy's trust fund. Diddy held vault footage from multiple celebrity events. Angela's calendar matched dates of encrypted server movement. A Zurich-based media firm scrubbed metadata 48 hours before the leak. Each step had a name. Each name had a position, and some were beginning to talk. A former Harpo IT contractor agreed to cooperate. He testified that Project Silk was more than a media archive. It was a reputational mitigation protocol, a system used to quietly store, rotate, and suppress visual content that could damage high-profile brands. He described folders labeled after individuals, some famous, others not. When asked why he didn't speak up earlier, he answered, "Because nobody believed bad things lived inside good people, until now." The files from Zurich continued to uncover more details. In one folder, prosecutors found a media schedule titled Event 47, Bahamas. The file showed a full guest list including tech billionaires, foreign diplomats, Grammy-winning artists, and 2 youth ambassadors listed under code names. 2 days after the event, a $12.7 million wire left a Harpo-controlled holding company and landed in Diddy's private offshore account. The payment had no invoice, but it had a label: legacy transfer. That phrase appeared again in a Harpo legal memo from 2020. All legacy transfers must remain off-book. Zurich compliance will route quarterly logs through Bermuda node. This wasn't chaos. It was a plan. At this point, even some Oprah supporters were turning. Editorials once written in admiration now carried titles like "The Cost of Silence," "Oprah and the Architecture of Trust," "When Icons Protect Icons." One survivor from Oprah's South African Academy spoke anonymously. "We were raised to see her as the answer. Now we wonder if she knew more than she said." Another more bluntly, "She didn't touch us, but she let it happen." Back in Zurich, Oprah gave a private interview to a Swiss journalist from RTS. She didn't deny the payments. She didn't deny the existence of the footage. But she insisted, "I didn't know the full truth until the files were already buried. I didn't pay to silence victims. I paid to keep blackmail from spreading, to stop chaos before it burned more lives. I thought I was saving people." When the interviewer asked if she now regretted the payment, she paused. "I regret believing silence was a shield." The Swiss response to her asylum claim came 2 days later. Denied. The ruling cited overwhelming evidence of structured obstruction, failure to demonstrate credible persecution, binding extradition treaty obligations. The decision was unanimous. Her lawyers filed a final emergency appeal. It was rejected within 12 hours. Swiss police confirmed. Ms. Winfrey will be surrendered to U.S. authorities under agreed diplomatic protocol. No cameras were allowed. No statements were made. At 6:12 a.m., a black SUV convoy departed the St. Moritz estate and headed for Zurich's international terminal. At the jetway, a reporter shouted, "Do you regret it?" Oprah turned her head. Her answer was quiet. "I regret trusting the wrong people." Then she boarded. Back in Washington, federal agents cleared a secure landing zone. No press, no photos, no press conference. She was escorted under protection to a federal holding suite and waited for the trial, for the world, for the verdict. But by now something had already shifted. The world didn't see her as Oprah the billionaire, or Oprah the mentor. They saw her as Oprah the gatekeeper. And the question remained, what else had she kept behind the gate? The room was silent. For a moment no one moved. No coughs, no whispers, not even the tapping of keys from reporters. Everyone watched the screen. On it played a video. A woman sat alone, no makeup, hair pulled back, lighting dim but deliberate. She looked older than usual, more worn, but unmistakable. It was Oprah. The jury had been instructed to watch without emotion, but they couldn't help it. Because for the first time in American history, the woman who built her career telling others' stories was now the story. The courtroom was federal secure and full. 12 jurors, 3 alternates, 2 federal prosecutors, 1 defense team, and Oprah Winfrey seated at the defense table, surrounded by silence. She wore a dark navy blouse, glasses and no jewelry. Her hands stayed folded. Her gaze rarely left the floor. The trial had officially begun. The prosecution opened carefully. They weren't trying to shock. They were trying to build trust. The lead prosecutor, a composed woman in her mid-40s, addressed the court. This is not a case about stardom. It's about structure, not about headlines, but habits. About what happens when someone becomes too powerful to be questioned and too trusted to be doubted. We are not asking you to convict a legacy. We are asking you to measure decisions, to weigh actions against the law, and to remember silence is not neutral when lives are at stake. Then she paused. And sometimes even heroes must be held accountable. The defense said little that first day. Their strategy was to listen, let the prosecution overreach. They believed the public still wanted to believe in Oprah, that her voice still carried weight, that her history mattered. They weren't wrong, but they weren't entirely right either. The next day, prosecutors laid out the structure of the case. 3 charges: obstruction of justice, knowingly interfering with a federal investigation by funding the concealment of evidence; suppression of evidence, directing or approving the destruction or delay of material relevant to an active investigation; conspiracy, coordinating with external parties to control or alter witness cooperation documentation and media narratives. There were no trafficking charges, no claims of personal abuse. The case wasn't about what Oprah did to anyone directly. It was about what she allowed and what she helped cover up. Then came the witnesses. The first was a digital forensic analyst from Homeland Security. He walked the jury through the Zurich media node. Using a large courtroom monitor, he demonstrated encrypted folders labeled by Harpo code, deleted but recovered logs tied to Harpo's New York office, a timeline matching payments from Harpo's offshore entities to Combs Global Trust within days of each server wipe. Each payment was large. Each deletion was confirmed. And each one, the analyst said, showed signs of intentional metadata sterilization. The second witness was a logistics contractor. She had worked indirectly with Harpo for over a decade. Her job shipping. But not packages, people. I handled names, fake names, codes. I booked travel for events with very high-profile individuals. Oprah's team always sent the list and we booked it under non-disclosure. Some of those names were minors. I flagged it once. Never again. She looked down. I was told I misunderstood the context. I stopped asking questions. On day 4, the court recessed early. A piece of evidence was being verified, a voice recording from a 2016 Harpo executive meeting. Allegedly, it included a voice that resembled Oprah's discussing a vault rotation schedule and referencing Zurich's off-site archive. The transcript read, "If this gets out, it's not just careers we lose, it's countries. We don't touch the vault until we know who's holding what." The defense asked for a voice authentication delay. The judge granted it. The prosecution waited. During recess, Oprah remained seated. She didn't speak to press, didn't glance at the gallery. Occasionally, she scribbled notes on a yellow legal pad. Behind her, the public seats were full of unfamiliar faces. Former students, former colleagues, activists, press. No celebrities. Gayle King did not attend. Neither did anyone from Harpo. Outside the courthouse, the public mood was shifting. Early support had faded into uncertainty. A woman who once ran a literacy campaign funded by Oprah spoke to CNN. "She taught me to speak truth. Now I hope she will too." An OWN fan tweeted, "This doesn't erase what she gave us, but maybe she was just one of them all along." NAR's Oprah trial trended globally for the first time. Back in court, the judge approved the audio file. It was played on day 6. The room was cold, still. The voice wasn't crystal clear, but the rhythm, the tone, the emphasis, they were familiar. Experts would later testify that the voice matched Oprah's vocal profile with 93% certainty. And the message, "The Zurich tapes go nowhere unless I sign. That's the rule. No signature, no deletion." There was no visible reaction from Oprah when the clip ended. She uncrossed her legs, then crossed them again. Nothing more. Next came the third witness, a woman in her 30s. She wore a simple dress, her hair in a low ponytail. She asked to testify under pseudonym. The judge granted it. "I was 16 when I first attended a leadership retreat, sponsored by a Harpo partner. I was told it was a scholarship program. It wasn't. There were cameras, drinks, lights. Some men I didn't know. Some women I'd only seen on TV. We signed papers. I didn't understand them. I tried to report it a year later, but the officer told me I'd ruin lives if I lied." She paused. "So I stopped talking." Her name appeared in one of Angela's travel logs, coded but matched by date and location. She cried only once. "I thought Oprah would have protected us. I really did." The defense finally stood on day 7. They didn't attack the witnesses. Instead, they framed Oprah as a victim of misguided loyalty, bad advice, and outsized responsibility. Their lead counsel stated, "Ms. Winfrey is not a criminal. She is a woman who tried to hold back a storm and made choices based on fear, not power. What would you have done if someone came to you with footage that could destroy families, careers, whole institutions? Would you release it, or would you try to contain the fire?" It was their first true moment of empathy, and it landed with some. But the prosecutors responded in closing for the week. Containment is not protection. Control is not care. And silence, when wrapped in money and power, does not heal, it conceals. As the week closed, the nation waited. The defense would call its first major witness next week. But already the question burned through every outlet. Did Oprah know, or did she choose not to know? And which answer was worse? Angela stepped onto the witness stand. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, just a blouse, slacks, and steady hands. "State your name, please." Angela Marie Collins. She had once arranged luxury travel for Harpo executives. Now she was the government's key witness. "What was your job at Harpo?" "I coordinated international logistics, mostly for private events and philanthropy programs. Zurich was part of my regular routing." "What was stored in Zurich?" "Media files, sensitive footage. Some were never meant to be aired." Angela handed over documents. Internal Harpo emails about vault rotations. Schedules tied to encrypted server movement. Payment logs to shell companies in Bermuda and the Bahamas. A signed directive authorizing a $75 million wire approved by Oprah herself. The courtroom shifted when she said it. "I delivered the payments, 4 total. Oprah signed each one. We were told never to ask what was in the tapes." Cross-examination was cautious. "Did Oprah directly tell you to destroy anything?" "No." "So how do you know she knew?" "I followed the signatures. They always led back to her." Next came the survivor from Part 4. She returned calmly with a service dog at her feet. "Did Oprah ever touch or threaten you?" "No, but I believed in her, and her name got me there. She didn't hurt me, but she gave her name to the people who did." The jury listened in silence. Then came David Kirsch, a former attorney for Harpo. "I wrote NDAs for Harpo guests. Many involved minors. They were told it was for privacy, but some were meant to bury what happened." He produced a memo. "Zurich team activated. Kill all legacy traces. Wait for signature." He confirmed the call authorizing deletions came after a private phone meeting with Oprah. I logged it. I didn't want to, but something felt off. Now the jury had Angela's documents and signature trails, the survivor's statement and matching travel logs, a lawyer's direct account of NDA suppression and metadata backups. Together it painted a full picture. No need for the video files. The system had been real. That night, protesters held candles outside the courthouse. Their signs said everything. I believed her. Vaults don't protect survivors. This is bigger than Oprah. Inside, the prosecution ended with one question. Why did the woman who told the world to speak choose silence? No one answered. The voices had already done that. In the end, the jury spoke, the system cracked, and Oprah, once the voice of truth, became its most haunting echo.